All right, can you hear me okay? This is my least favorite part of the entire thing, which is starting, because everybody's networking, talking, eating, and it's all a good thing, and then I have to interrupt that. So my apologies for interrupting, but we do have some information to share and a guest speaker and all for you. So first of all, as we get started, I mean, we can go with our tradition unless we have somebody else who wants to volunteer to come up and replace Janina and sing our national anthem a cappella for us. Anybody? How is this, an elected rep coming up to do it? One round of applause for Jamie.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, as we get started today, we have a special treat. So I'll, Alicia, Denise, come on up. So from our State House of Representatives, notice please, this is a bipartisan group from our State House. Who all's coming up? We're bringing everybody from the museum that's here up. It's going to get crowded up here. All right, museum folks, get on up here.
Good morning, everybody. It is my pleasure. I say these words, and when my husband's around, when I start a sentence with, I'm the luckiest girl, my husband will look at me. But what I mean is, I'm very lucky to have Selfridge in my district, in the Air Museum, and it's just an honor. So with that being said, this tribute is for, I'm going to let Ed hold it, the 50th anniversary to the Selfridge Air Museum.
Now you can applaud.
I also want to add that tribute, the special tribute, is signed by all 13 members in the House. So,
thank you, Alicia.
yeah, no, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
So here's another special tribute, and this is to Odie. He was just recently conducted. Is that inducted. It was close into the 2025 Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Fame.
You know, the Selfridge Air Museum, awesome. This is the folks that are taking care of our history, preserving it out there, and what a rich history it is. The cool thing is, with the plan to extend the runway, being baked into that plan is an option for public access to the museum. Because right now you have to get on base to get to that museum. Let's hope in a few years that you don't. That you can go straight out there, and that we can go out there and have birthday parties, retirements, all sorts of things, make it an event center, and just make it a lot more accessible to everybody. But thank you for all the volunteers at the museum that do all the great work for us. So one more round of applause for them, please. All right, and our wonderful hosts here at Mission Barbecue, they're all hiding back there and everything else. But as always, thank you for being wonderful with the food. And our wonderful sponsors, of course, I think the muscle in the room right now, AEW. We got all 5 of you here. I didn't count when we came in, but all of our AEW contingent. Thank you all so much for being an ongoing sponsor. I always forget Brian here in front with Aero 92 is a member of our exec committee and a sponsor, so thank you very much. I have not seen Rick in here because he's another one. He's on our exec committee and then with Velocity also. And I'm just looking, that's our current sponsors that we have right now, and of course our partners. We are part of the Michigan Military Coalition, which is all of the nonprofits that are the advocacy groups for the different services with NDIA, AUSA, who am I missing? NOGAM has joined that group now, and not to be confusing at all, the Space Force Association. Not that we're already the Air and Space Forces Association. We won't get it anyway. And as he walks in, as we just mentioned, Mr. Rick Vinay with Velocity, rocking in there. Great timing, Rick. And then my exec committee team, raise your hands up. Okay, most of the time they have on these cool little shirts and everything. We got Carl, we got, is that it? Oh, Ray, our Vanna White greeter back here. And then Brian, who's our videographer, sponsor, and member of the exec committee, does everything, Brian Berkmeyer. I think that's my team. Thank you. And as always, the Lamparters are always wonderful supporters. Mr. Mary Lamparter, who's with us today. And normally up front we have Janina Jacobs representing the Navy League, but Jim's here holding down the Navy side for us today, so thank you as always. All right, you're going to challenge me today. If you are an elected official, just raise your hands. I'm not even going to try and go through names. I'm going to screw something up. But this is cool. When we talk about advocacy, we have elected folks that come in and are part of this forum, and then staffers. They're all their heads down in their cell phones right now. But the staff, they're the ones that really make the things happen. So thank you all for being part of this. All right, so there's been a few things that have happened since we last met. We're not really going to cover a whole lot, but I just wanted to touch on real quick. When it comes to air and space power, I don't know if you understand really what happened. I want to give you just a little bit of an insight of the complex operations. I know that was a month and a half, 2 months ago, we had the operation in Iran, and what was involved from an air power standpoint involving the B-2 bombers and the tankers from Selfridge. We talked about that before, how they were integrally involved in empowering the B-2s to even get where they needed to go. But once again, this is over 150 aircraft. I believe it was 30 different bases, all choreographed along with ground operations and everything else in an extraction operation, which the best part is the far right side over there, 0 casualties. Now, when we talk about, I mean, it's an amazing operation from the planning, preparing, all the equipment, everything that went into it, remarkable from that perspective. But if I haven't ever mentioned this to you before, I gotta give you a little insight. So currently the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is 4-star General Dan Raisin Kane, R-A-Z-I-N. Raisin, I met Raisin as Second Lieutenant Dan Kane when he was one of my F-16 students who was coming through training. So when I was an instructor, I eventually became an evaluator. So once I first became an evaluator pilot and I could give check rides, my very first check ride was to that guy. And it was his final flight in his F-16 training, so I'm certifying him to be mission ready. And I had to go out and I gave him a very, very rarely called exceptionally qualified grade. I said he made me as a Santa Claus right then and there, because I'm the very first one, I'm given a superlative grade and everything else. But he is a pretty remarkable individual. He is not just a guardsman. You know, the Guard fought for a long time to even get a seat in the room with all these leaders in our military. Now, the 4-star heading it all, not as just a guardsman, he is what we would call a guard baby. He's only been a guardsman his entire career. So his path of career and everything is entirely different. He's been mostly a part-timer. I say it like this because you don't call a guardsman a part-timer. A traditional guardsman, a drill status guardsman. He ran businesses very successfully in Washington, D.C. and everything else, in addition to his military career that he's had. So to me, it's a little nostalgic when I still think of little Raisin Kane, who's now 4-star Raisin Kane, and it makes me feel very old. Yes, thank you, as my wife reminded me, she was 10 years old. But in this operation, if you count it up, I mean, this is down in Puerto Rico. At one point in this picture alone, you can count tales of 11 F-22s that are down there that deployed. We could talk about different types of airplanes, but it's just pretty remarkable display of air power. The one that is interesting is they have publicly acknowledged the RQ-170, the Sentinel. Did I get that designation right?
You did.
And when we talked to the Air Force before, if you were back when we did the whole thing about the structure of the Air Force, they admit that this is in the inventory, but when you look, it doesn't say that there are any in the inventory. So it's kind of like they had to acknowledge it. And if you don't know the story why, it's because one got hijacked years ago. I think the date's on there. There you go. 5 December 2011, they were able to hack the data link and basically steal, they being Iran, and then Iran put pictures all over in newspapers and everything else of this secret drone that was out there. So that's why it's kind of an interesting, is it public, is it not? Do we acknowledge it? Well, you can go just Google it and see everything there, but that's Iranians. And now they've made a copy of their own, apparently, that Iran flies that they think is the same thing. All right, if you know me, you know I like to do this. This is this day in history. So on this day in history in 1997 was a tragedy here in Michigan. You had a commuter jet, or a commuter prop plane, crashed down in Monroe County. It wasn't the icing, it was the procedures for that airplane for the icing that were improper. So the crew didn't do the right thing with the icing. Ice on the wings, changed the aerodynamics and weight, and eventually the plane crashed, killing 29 people. Also, now there's a lot of words, I'll just let you read, but I'll tell you the story real quick. So back when the Six Pack, that's the name of the squadron out now that flies tankers at Selfridge, was an interceptor squadron flying F-4C model Phantoms. They sat alert at Seymour Johnson in North Carolina. Well, they got scrambled one time for a plane that was coming into the ADIZ, the Air Defense Identification Zone, improperly, so they were sent up to intercept them. Well, in this interception with the bad weather, poor visibility and all, the F-4 hit the little plane and it crashed and 7 people died. Well, you keep reading in that story, like I said, if you're reading down in that paragraph, the guy who was flying that airplane had gotten in trouble before as a drug dealer. So when you get into all this, Tiffany was his last name, but had done this kind of thing before, but this time he happened to be on the receiving end of a mid-air collision that happened with one of Selfridge's F-4s. Now the F-4 came back to Seymour Johnson and landed okay. Our air defense, we still have units that do this to this day, that like the Duluth unit could be up in Minnesota, but they could sit alert down in Florida or something like that. There's always been different arrangements for things like that. When I was in Tucson, we sat alert at Davis Mountain, which was about 4 or 5 miles away. So some people can sit Homeland Defense alert like Toledo does right now in Toledo, or they can pick up and move to some other place in the country to be able to do that. So we were out of North Carolina, we being the Selfridge jets at the time. All right, so the last one in history. I know this is a little outside of air and space power, but I found this one very interesting. So Columbus wrote down in his journal on this day in history, okay, in 1493, that he saw mermaids. And his description were, and I read it, not half as beautiful as they are painted. It was later determined that he didn't see mermaids, he saw manatees. So my question is, how long do you have to be at sea when you think that is a mermaid? That's a Navy question, isn't it, Jim? Okay. Hey, I don't make up the history, I just report it, okay? But anyway. All right, so that being said, Michigan's hometown air base, what a wonderful place. You hear me crow about it all the time. And if you don't know the story very quickly, when I first showed up here, I come from the Guard Bureau, I used to have to teach about what's different about the National Guard. We are the constitutionally established militia of the state. I got up in front of a group, they don't know me, I just came to Michigan and I stand up in front of the group and I proudly proclaim, we are the Macomb Militia! And it was dead quiet. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Get off the stage, my public affairs walks up behind me and she goes, there is a Macomb Militia? They are not nice people. Don't ever say that again. So we became Michigan's hometown air base. All right, so we rebranded a little bit. So Michigan's hometown air base. Not only the 127th Wing, but there's 44 other tenants out there and growing. It changes a little bit. Pardon?
32 tenants, but like 70 different agreements.
All right, you can ask. We can plug on him in here in just a second. But if y'all don't know, we have a new commander out at Selfridge. We had her out here before the change of command and everything. We'll get Leah back out here at some point. But that good-looking guy to her right there, our guest speaker for today. So we have with us the current reigning multi-domain champion of the Michigan Air National Guard, weighing in at about 180 pounds, coming in from the left corner today. The commander of the Michigan Air National Guard, the Assistant Adjutant General for Air for the Michigan Air National Guard, ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Dan Kosmo Kramer.
Thank you, Odie. So I was warned. I was talking to the gentleman in the back there, like, oh no, you're going after Odie. He's like a premier speaker, and he's got slides, and he's a history buff, and I am not that, but I don't apologize for it. Would you apologize? I don't think so. But Odie, I'll tell you a couple things I could have off of your intro there. There were several things that I wanted to change in my presentation, really to just kind of address a couple things that he said. And one that I'm really proud of is General Kane being the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It might not be known to most, but that's the first time we've ever had a guardsman fill that position. And it's quite unique. And if you hear that gentleman talk, he is special. And I like to liken that to the Guard in general is special. Another thing that Odie said was, the part-timers. The guardsmen, Air and Army guardsmen, are time and a halfers because they don't focus on one job, whether it's being a parent at home, a spouse, having a job. They do that, and then they go and serve, and they deploy, and they do all the things that you expect of our service women and men, and they do it in addition to another job. And the employers that commit to that, when they hire a veteran or a guardsman or reservist, they're taking on risk because at some point in their tenure working for that company, they're not going to be there to carry the mail. So we are a special organization. I've spent time in active duty before I came into the Guard. Came back to Michigan for family purposes and then didn't stay here. I was all over the world deploying and taking assignments and those types of things. But I just have a real, just proud to be a guardsman because of what we do for our country. So I want to talk a little bit about, I am going to get into the Michigan Air Guard, just give you an overview of what's under my portfolio, if you will. And then I want to talk about Selfridge because it's important to Southeast Michigan here. But another thing that, going off of Odie, just had so many good nuggets that I wanted to talk about. One of them is civ-mil relations, civilian-military relations, and how that works. It's another thing that I'm very thankful for. And Odie said, a bipartisan, he was joking about the bipartisan presentation. That, my job is great because I don't get political. But I need politicians. We'll talk a little bit about that. I need to be able to inform them, educate them, help them when they need help, but I don't have to get political. My job is to take orders from the Commander-in-Chief in two areas, the state and federal. We're Title 32 Guardsmen, which means we have two chains of command. When activated, we work for the President. When we're not, we work for the Governor. And what a great opportunity because I have in the two-party system that we have today, I work for both. So I love it. And when people try to get political with me on a partisanship, they're like, hey, you're talking to the wrong guy, I take orders. And I love it because I don't have to get political. That's for the rest of you to do. But I wanted to thank the folks that are here, that are elected officials, because we can't do our job without the oversight and direction from our elected leaders. And make no ands, ifs, or buts about it. That is the only way a democracy works, folks. We take the Constitution is solid, and it states that. You won't find a military officer in the, pray not, that will not take orders from their Commander-in-Chief. And that's what makes us special. I've done a lot of things, met a lot of people. Some of those operations that you saw that we did in Venezuela, I've been part of those all over the world, and it's amazing what they do, but they only work when we take direction from one commander-in-chief all the way down, right? So, thanks for letting me share my passion for service and my appreciation for our Constitution first. So now I'm going to move into what are we doing in the Michigan Air Guard, and who am I? What's this? You know, that good-looking guy that was up here before me. You know, he's done pretty well for himself, and I'm pretty proud to know him, because you know, I don't know anybody that's been living that has been inducted into the Veterans Hall of Fame for Michigan. So someday I will be there too, I hope.
Are you saying I'd be better off dead?
You take it how you want to take it. So Michigan Air Guard, what are Michigan National Guard? What are we? We're the combat reserve for the Air Force, not the Air Force Reserves. We are the combat reserve, the primary. The Air Force Reserves are there too, but the Guard is the combat reserve, and we are busy all the time. Each state and territory and the District of Columbia has an Air National Guard. Closer? There. How's that? Okay. Were you doing that on purpose, going back?
Getting feedback.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So Michigan, what do we do in the Michigan Air Guard? We've got 3 installations at a headquarters. And I'm going to go around the room with that, around the world with those real quick, and give you those missions, and then I'm going to give you guys some time to ask questions. Specifically, I think there's probably some interest in Selfridge and the new conversions. But starting with what do we do? We'll go to the west side and start there. So Battle Creek Air National Guard Base. Used to fly A-10s out of there. Those A-10s came here to Selfridge, and they did a mission change. Part of their mission change, we got a command and control mission. Operational planning and command and control. We got a MQ-9 mission. That's a remotely piloted aircraft. They fly that out of Battle Creek, and they fly it all over the world. And then we have a cyber defense mission. So you think, okay, that's 3 missions. Those are very unique missions. Some are aging. Some, you know, the MQ-9, there's some questions on how long that drone is going to be around, because if you watch the news, they've been going down, and the inventory is shrinking rapidly, and they're not buying any more right now. So that's a mission that we're going to look to remission in the future. How long, I don't know, but we're working on that right now. The cyber mission is very important to some of the operations you saw that Odie was talking about. Cyber is a big up and coming industry. Cyber operations on the offensive side, which we don't do in the Guard, takes special authorities that we don't have. Think CIA and NSA. But on the defensive cyber, we're very integral to the defense of our forces and our infrastructure in the United States here. So that's a growing mission, and we're probably going to add to that mission down the road. So that's Battle Creek. I was the commander there. I could talk about it all day long. I think I was here last talking about that. So I'll move on to what we have up north, the Combat Readiness Training Center in Alpena. That is a jewel for the Michigan Air National Guard and the Air National Guard in whole, and I would say the Joint Force. If you're riding around up north in the summertime, you've probably seen a lot of different aircraft, maybe Humvees, maybe gas stations full of service members. That Camp Grayling and the Alpena Combat Readiness Training Center are big draws for the Joint Force to come do training. Our folks are responsible for hosting that training, building up the base to accept aircraft, to accept special forces, to whatever they want to do, we're there. And it's a great place. We can't lose that capability, because it brings in right now close to $30 million a year in federal funding, thanks to our federal elected officials, to ensure that Northern Strike gets between $25 and $30 million a year to put on a class act exercise. And it is a steal of a deal for those that come and use the facilities and the airspace in northern Michigan. There's a commander up there, a new commander just placed about 3 or 4 months ago, same time that the commander down at Selfridge was replaced or brought in. He's full of energy. We like to say a lot of thrust needs a little vectoring. Yeah. Some would say that about Odie. Maybe. No. That's it. Wow. Hey, I'll just have to, get back at you a little bit while I have the mic. Yeah, I know. You've got it more than I do, so just say. But anyway, it's a great installation if you're ever going north and you're interested. If you just go to the Alpena Airport, they share the Alpena Airport with the Combat Readiness Training Center. So and same with Battle Creek. The airport there is a city-owned airport, and the Air Guard base is on the airport. And you've got, and that's important, and I'll get to that when we get to Selfridge. And then the final thing is headquarters, where I sit with 58 of my closest friends in the Air Guard and about 300 Army Guardsmen, maybe 600 on a drill weekend. But we are the smaller force, but I would say we have our advantages too. So not questioning the intellect of the Army members in the room, but I can tell you, there's a difference between the Army and the Air, especially when it comes to lodging and deployments. So, all right, for those of you who haven't served, you might not get that, but Odie and I, we know what we're talking. We know what that means, right? Really what I think Odie wanted me to talk about and give an update on, it's near and dear to the folks here. We have no active duty installations, Air Force active duty installations in Michigan, and we're the 10th largest state. It's kind of sad, actually. We used to have 3 bomber bases, all closed down, and last one, K.I. Sawyer, in the 90s, and we're left with 1 guard base, federally owned guard base. We have 3 installations, I explained to you, in the headquarters, but 1 guard base. Selfridge is critical to not only the Michigan Air National Guard, but I would say to Southeast Michigan's economy and our footprint in the national defense industry. If we lost Selfridge, or Selfridge was reduced to what they were proposing to reduce it to, that would have, in my mind, would have been a huge failure and the start of a dismal outlook for the Michigan Air National Guard. Can't speak for the Army. And why I say that is we have a gift here in the Guard. We are the last of the super bases, federally owned and occupied property. And that's important because when I told you before about Battle Creek and Alpena, they share property with the city airport. The Air Force and the Air National Guard like that model because it's less costly to maintain. So the federal government has to pay for keeping Selfridge maintained, up to date with missions, and they're not excited about that. We're costly when it comes to that, and I think it's important that you understand that's what we fight every year, every decade, is those that look at trying to reduce Selfridge to something that looks more like Battle Creek. They love us to become a regional airport because then we get a cost share, and then but what that does to us, if we go to a regional airport, it does limit what you can bring here. When you're federally owned and occupied, nobody can just get on that base, right? So it does have its draw too. We can put things there that you can't. And that's where I'm going to talk about our new missions now. So I gave you that back, like we were on a death spiral at Selfridge. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. Thanks to my boss, General Rogers, an Army 2-star, who has a vision to keeping Selfridge as a cornerstone for the Michigan National Guard, not the Air National Guard, the Michigan National Guard. He believes in Selfridge and the missions there so much that he put everything into keeping both flying missions at Selfridge. The tanker unit, right now the 135s, and the fighter unit, the A-10s that Odie flew. He was instrumental in working with the governor, who worked with our federal delegation to keep the pressure on the Air Force to recapitalize the A-10s that are set to retire in 2028 here. End of 27 will be the last flight right now. He, to the very end, was committed to that. Whenever I would say most lost hope I would say in the military side of things, most lost hope. The Secretary of the Air Force signed a document in February of 24 saying you are going to get 12 KC-46s to recapitalize your old KC-135s that are retiring and your A-10s, the 21 A-10s that are going away. That's not a good deal. They were thinking it was a great deal for us because you're getting 12 brand new aircraft. No, you're going from 2 flying missions to 1. We would have lost, Selfridge would have been reduced to a wing size smaller than Battle Creek. And that just wouldn't have been right. Taking all of our active duty bases in the 90s and then take our Jewel and the Michigan National Guard and reducing it to the size of a normal, smaller wing. It was not pretty. It's not even been a year, and we had the announcement where the president came with the governor, so bipartisan, victory, stood on the ramp, and the president made that announcement. And if you watch that announcement, and you look because you can find it on YouTube, and you see some of the people in the background, the airmen that fixed the fighters, there were tears in some of their eyes, because they didn't know what they were going to do. They were emotionally invested into the mission, and that to me, that gets me a little choked up, because they're invested in what they do and cared so much about it that it brought them to tears. So that was it was a powerful day, because now we are looking at a bright future at Selfridge. We're looking at, and I'll give the talking points, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. We're looking at going from not getting any investment into the base to about $1 billion worth of investment in the construction of new buildings, updating infrastructure, updating the runway. We're talking, it was 985 million. The last I saw was now over $1 billion on an estimate, inflation and changes in the designs. $1 billion coming to Southeast Michigan in construction projects over the next 5 years. The next big thing is the aircraft. Boeing produces both the KC-46 refueling aircraft and the F-15EX. F-15EX is going to be about $2.3 billion worth of aircraft. 21 aircraft, they're about $100 million a copy. The KC-46, now that price has been all over the map. We get a deal right now in the Air Force for I'm going to paraphrase, about $150 million a copy, but that, when their initial contract is done with the Air Force, they're going to increase that. Is this not working?
It's popping.
Yeah,
Try that a little.
Okay, good deal. So we're talking about, $3.5 billion in equipment, and then servicing that equipment. Imagine that, we've got jobs forever. Now, I say forever, 30 to 50 years will go like that, right? But that's what we're looking at. We've secured a mission for Selfridge, 2 missions for Selfridge, maintain at a minimum our current manning footprint, and the missions are for both of them. I can't talk too much about you were refueling and fighters. The difference between the A-10s and the F-15s, other than the F-15s look cooler, is I should say the other way. The A-10s, they're ugly, but everybody thinks they're cool. The F-15s are sleek, but they have a completely different mission. Air superiority, defending the skies from enemy aircraft, and then they've got a second mission too that's air to ground, which will complement what the current F-15 fleet does not do: carry bombs. If you say that in the fighter world, as a F-15 pilot, they don't say the word bomb, because they like missiles, they don't like bombs. So
I got pictures I'll put up for you.
yeah, thanks, Odie. And that's really, I want to give you, that's where we're at. I kind of gave you what we do in Michigan, very important to our national security. Like Odie said, all of our units, not just the tanker, but the Battle Creek team that does cyber and does some MQ-9 work, we're involved in that, the Hammer operation that we talked about against Iran. We're busy doing things all the time for the active duty and for the defense of our nation. When we're not doing that, we're doing things for our state, whether it's helping recover from the ice storm in northern Michigan last year to, doing cyber operations with our community businesses to help them evaluate their critical infrastructure against cyber attacks. And we're engaged everywhere all the time. So now I want to open it. Go ahead.
I'm going to ask the first loaded question if I could.
You can.
And only because the tag brought this up publicly, so.
Yeah.
Are these future missions for Selfridge a done deal?
Yeah, thanks, Odie. That perfect. Until the iron are on the ramp, that's what we always say. The iron on the ramp, meaning the aircraft have arrived and are stationed there. Nothing's a done deal, right? The heavy lifting, what we're doing right now, and our political friends, this is where we need them more than ever, is we are pushing the Air Force to spend money because nothing's irrevocable until you've spent too much. They can't revoke it. Now even then you can say, they put $1 billion in and we'll just throw it away.
They've done that though.
They have. We don't think that will happen, but what we aren't doing is sitting back and saying, yep, let's do the victory dance. No, we have to push. Right now the aircraft for the F-15s are scheduled to be here in 28. They haven't published the numbers based on Boeing's production. They had a strike not too long ago, and that's impacted how many they can produce. But we're in a good position with the current administration on where we will get that. When I say administration, the Secretary of the Air Force has positioned us above some of the other Guard units that are scheduled to get them. But still, that's 28. What do we have to do between now and then? And this is where General Rogers and I are aligned and have a common belief, is that we have to push the Air Force to put program money into the future budgets, FY 27, 28, 29. If we sit back and just let them, we'll wait till you're ready for the military construction. No, we'll be ready. You just give us the money. That's our argument. And it's not that easy. There's processes, there's milestones for design that they want you to meet before they're willing to put it into a budget. But we're fighting to get it in the budget so it's harder for them to say no at the end of the day. And go ahead, Ron.
Dan, yesterday the president announced a $500 billion increase in the defense budget. That's $500 billion, $5,000 million. It's a lot of money. Without getting too deep into the weeds, how much of that money has potential to come here to Michigan?
That would be getting into the weeds. But let me, in general. But let me tell you. One, that was a budget. That was his. If I understand, that was his 27 budget proposal, right? The PV, the president's budget. That has, that's the administration's proposal. Now it's got to go through all the congressional, both the House and Senate. We're going to cut, and what they're going to do. So I don't know if we're going to see that much at the end of the day, nor do I know if we're going to see a budget, because we could,
20 years, so.
Well, right, yeah, the
Iron's not on the ramp yet.
No, but it does get. I will get into a little of the weeds. The aircraft that are slated to come to Selfridge, not the exact identified number because they have a part number on it, but the 21 aircraft were funded in a previous bill. That was the reconciliation bill, or the big beautiful bill last year. The money was in the bill to purchase the aircraft. That's done. It's been appropriated. That money's set aside. So from that standpoint, and that's not the question you asked, but I want you to know some of that money's already been allocated in previous budgets or bills. Selfridge, I'd love to talk to, there's people in this room that might have a better idea than I on what does the president's budget look like for Selfridge, because it'll be identified. What we would love to see is $500 million in military construction in this year's, the 27 PB. Then that's something Congress can chew on. Will it be there? I don't know. And I don't want to pretend to estimate what that looks like. But if $500 million came to Selfridge this year, out of a $5 $500 billion bill, yeah, I'd take it. Randy?
All right, along the schedule lines, are there any projects that are shovel-ready scheduled, i.e.,
Yeah, let's-
to the runway? Is something going to happen this calendar year?
Yes. So these are great questions. Hopefully this is what you were intending was, so I'm going to bore you with the process for construction projects, but in the federal government, you have to get authority to design. That means that somebody said, yes, we're authorizing you to put $1 billion worth of infrastructure in. And then you got to get a design contract awarded. That's about 10% of what the construction project would be. And then you design it, and then you build. You can't get the construction funds till you're at 35% design. They won't even think about it. And then when you get to 100%, you can design. So that's telling you we are at 100% design on the runway encroachment solution off runway, meaning the Hall Road project you probably all heard about that's going to wrap around so that we can extend the runway. That'll be shovel ready this spring. That's the plan. The rest of the runway should be shovel ready this year as well. The design should be 100%, late spring. The taxiways will follow that and sometime this year. So we can put shovels in the ground this year. Who's going to fund the construction right now? We know that's still up for debate. But we know we need to do it, and it's designed ready. The other $792 million in construction outside of the runway, those are hangars, that's electrical upgrades, ramp updates, lots of, we've got 6 major Milcom projects. Those won't be shovel ready till 27, late 27. That's why we want it in the 27 bill, because we have to wait till 28. Now we're a whole construction season behind. So that's what we're pushing for, 27. So good question. Does that answer it? Yeah, runway now, 27 is the next. I'll get here, then I'll go there. Go ahead, sir.
Subject we mentioned before, the housing.
Yes.
As part of this whole infrastructure and land use.
Yeah, so the housing at Selfridge, just we talked briefly earlier, we need to remove the housing because it's not being used. It's not authorized on our base anymore, but we haven't been funded to do the demo. And then there's things with the housing you have to work through SHPO, it could be historic, and so we've got to work through all that. The plan right now is, we don't have a plan for it because we're not going to pay for the demo, but it is on the list. If we can get federal funds to start the demo, we will do that, but we're not sure when. And it needs to come down because it's becoming a safety issue right now, and it's get filled with rodents and rats, and things start getting in, critters find their way in. So our folks do the best they can to keep it maintained, but we're not funded to maintain it, if you will. Let me get him, and then I'll come back. Go ahead.
On the same lines, is there an anticipated increase in strength from guard with the
Yeah, so there was going to be a significant increase if we had 12 KC-46 along with the 21 F-15s. But the secretary recently released it. I don't think it made big news, but we're reducing that number of KC-46s down to 8. And part of their argument was the manpower. They didn't want to, where were they going to come up with the funding to program more? So there's going to be changes in the manning documents because the missions are different, but I'm not comfortable giving a number of plussing, or I definitely don't see a decrement, but there's, I would say, not much change, if that makes sense. Good question, though. These are good questions. I want to get this gentleman, he had
John, I'm retired as the chief enlistment manager of the security forces at Selfridge.
yes,
I'm concerned with the new aircraft coming in. Is there going to be any plus-up in the security forces manpower through the full-time H Air Force? Right now, there's only 27, I think.
Yeah, they get I think additional authorizations year to year. However, the A4S folks, that's an acronym meaning the security forces portion of the A4 department, they don't have the budget to put more manpower. So that's why we get money to have a DK security contract is to keep it secure. That's why we don't have that other base open, the other entrance open, because we don't have the manpower to do it. I don't see a significant increase. There's different personnel that are going to be included in this new manpower package that are going to, I can't even talk about them, so I'll just leave it at that. There's different flavors of security that are going to be included in a manpower document for this new aircraft. I know you were.
Yeah, I just want to make a statement. He's right about, absolutely, this was unprecedented, bipartisan support for Selfridge, and we can say it from our end or as a civilian, but it's really important for the community to understand that this goes to the House, it goes to the Senate, and this bipartisanship is very important there. And then also in our state House and our state Senate to support the base, because a lot of things that you're talking about have to, the monies come from different pockets. And even though you can't talk about it, I can say publicly that it's a bipartisan and it's a contribution between the feds and the state. So, and since we have so many legislators here today, it's good to, I'd like to just talk about that or make you aware of that. So, as part of this conversation.
I am aware.
Yeah. I can say what you can.
Thank you. If you have questions about that, you can talk to him. No, great. Yes.
I had a chance to go up to Alpena.
Yes.
And thank you for, I stayed in those barracks when they were World War II barracks, and they are very nice, although I had a little bit of reservation about sharing a bathroom with somebody. But that CRTC base is an incredible asset that we have. And if anybody that hasn't been up to Alpena, they really need to go, because it's a wonderful place to just kind of hang out. I was also down at Fort Custer, and I drove around the base quite a bit, and they're doing an excellent job here. There's some fantastic facilities there at Fort Custer for training of our National Guard, anybody from around the country. But we're also moving our Sea Cadets from, the Navy Sea Cadets from RTC Great Lakes, which is the only recruit training command for the Navy. It's up at Great Lakes. We're moving that down to, not the recruit training command, but the Sea Cadet training command over at Fort Custer. I think.
That's great news.
That's because of the big ocean at Fort Custer.
Yeah. We talk strategy for the state. You know, I've got a lot of great ideas on how we bring the Navy or Navy reserves, but that'll be a talk for offline another day. But the joint force, I say it's another day and I start talking about it. I can't help myself. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, perfect. So this is the Alpena CRTC is right up here, and you see this is airspace that's overlaid there. It's a great playground for people that want, for fighter pilots, even bomber pilots will use our airspace because we've got the Grayling range. But this water, you know, think about our adversaries and who we're training against today. You know, China. What do we have that the coasts don't have? The East Coast, West Coast, they've got water right there. What we don't have, I'm just being, this isn't classified, I'm just smart enough to know that we don't have Chinese fishing trawlers going up and down our coast looking for things, right? We have a great training environment. We have an electromagnetic spectrum availability like none other. If that's going over your head, it went over my head too. But what that means is you can use the electromagnetic spectrum to test your capabilities, whether it's radar systems, whether it's different frequencies that you need to execute cyber operations against targets. We can do that here. You just can't do that everywhere else because the FCC, you know, communications networks can't be, you can't disrupt them. You could cause loss of life if you're not careful. So we have opportunities up here that there's like no other. So yeah, thank you, and I could talk more about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, just the picture on the left, just to point out, I loved this picture because if you ever watch Red Flag and everything, you think of the big massive ranges in Nevada and all that happens out there. We're bigger. By a little bit. When you look at the overall square mileage and everything else, the airspace available at Alpena is bigger than what they have out at the Nellis ranges.
And
It's really remarkable.
It is, the one thing I always caveat, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is uninterrupted airspace. And Nellis, the range, you can't, nobody's flying in there, almost ever. Where up here, we have to schedule it a lot of times. So that's one of our, and we haven't, and I'm not taking away from our capability, but there's some things with the FAA that we have to deal with airline traffic, because there's a major corridor that goes over. So we really fought to get that airspace, but we used to say, hey, we got the best airspace, east of the Mississippi. Still say it, but we got to be, I caveat everything, because some people will call the BS flag. Oh, BS. Yeah. Go ahead, Ron.
Dan, the Air Force Research Labs down in Dayton, it just seems to me that airspace you're talking about creates a tremendous opportunity for the state of Michigan. Why don't we leverage that more?
The short answer is we are. Some of it you don't hear about because it is a research lab. And the long answer is we're not a test range, so you can't do some of the things in our airspace that you can in our Nevada test range. Because we're not a designated test range. There's a lot of things that go into it. Now, Ron, you bring up a good point, is why don't we look to be a test range? That's one of our options. I would say we're not like, hey, we're going to go be a test range, because then if you're a test range, now you pull other things out too that now it's not as operational. You can't just let people in there to do operational flying and training. But I hear you, and let me just, if you're concerned that people don't know about it and don't use it, I just can't talk about a lot of some of the things, right? So we do, people understand it, maybe not the research lab itself, but other organizations that are close to it use it. We have special operators that come up there and use it. There's because it is a capable range and things that go with that. But
with the approval of your department, that range can be used for a lot of different things.
Well, not just, it's outside of our department. It actually goes to the big Air Force.
And the FAA has a huge role in that.
Yes. Right. I'm on that line of thinking. I think a lot. Like, I think about what would be a good strategy, and I've thought about that. There's a lot of obstacles, but not that you can't overcome those obstacles. But we've got to have advocacy and a requirement from a larger organization. But we help drive that requirement, right? We bring people up. Part of the Northern Strike exercise is that we bring people into the environment so they see what Odie just pointed out, like, holy crap, you've got that much airspace. People love the remoteness because there's not prying eyes, and then the safety is there's less people per square mile. You have an accident, there's not as much of a potential catastrophe. So there's a lot of positives, and yeah, we're thinking on the same wavelength. It's not like, hey, let's go make a test range tomorrow. Okay, here then here. Yeah.
We have 3 Airbnbs in Chesterfield Town. Cater to all the guys that love the bass fishing in Lake St. Clair. But are you going to be having a lot of visitors? Do you anticipate to the base as you're constructing it?
I would say yes. I think when we get in the construction season, we're going to be jammed because we're not going to try to sequence it comfortably. We're going to try to get it. So the short answer is yes.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Right. Well, we're going to hope to have an industry day here next month or so to kind of highlight what type of work we're going to be advertising. We have to be careful because you get the solicitation and not, and giving it unfair advantages. We just want to make sure people are aware of the opportunities for the $1 billion worth of investment that are coming here. So, yeah, I think it'll be good for the area. Yeah.
So as the legislature, we don't always get to know what's going on. I saw a press release recently from Saab that they've made an investment up in.
Grayling?
What?
Grayling?
In Grayling,
Yeah.
yes. And so, okay, so two things. What was, because they were kind of vague in their press release, what was that? And is there a way, like, piggybacking on what Ron said on how we can capitalize on more businesses or something we can be doing to capitalize on bringing companies like that to Michigan?
Oh, I love the question. I'm going to punt to I have an Army counterpart that can speak more to the Saab and the Grayling area. And General Myers is the ATAG initiatives lead for the state. And his sole job is to look at initiatives that do that, bring defense industry into Michigan and using the space. He's part of that, the Saab experiment, if you will. What they're making, I don't know if not that I'm not qualified, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'd say something wrong. So I'd rather, I'll get with you after, exchange contact information. I can get you connected with the right people.
Speaking of that too, all the different tenants that are at Selfridge, can you talk about some of the other initiatives that are being done there for their infrastructure or whatever else is being built there that helps grow Selfridge as a capability?
So I was very in tune with this at one time, and then I left Selfridge and went to Battle Creek, and now I leave it to the base leadership to really know. But in general, the main tenants there, if you're interested, the Army, they're building a new facility there. The P program Abrams, the Abrams program, you're tracking that. It's like they're building a new facility there. Not entirely sure what the mission is, but I know it's more on the testing side of things. So that's a big new investment that's coming to Selfridge. They've got GVSC, the Ground Vehicle Systems Center, has several labs out at Selfridge. That's on the active duty Army side. On the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard's been there, they're going to stay there. Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security, they're there and getting the bigger every year. They're adding footprint, which is outstanding. So that's why that federal nexus, we don't want to give that up because that is huge. Now, then you got the Air Guard, obviously we're the biggest tenant. We have the Army Guard, they fly Chinooks out of there. No plans to increase the Army Guard presence at this time. The Marines are out there, the Marine Reserves. The Marine Reserves are looking to build some new facilities, but what we really want the Marines to do is build on the other side of the same side of the base as the 127th Wing, the east side. What we'd like to do is keep that west side open for federal business and more in the R&D, research and development arena. General Rogers had a vision of a research park, maybe a P4 initiative out there. So those are the things we're looking at. But I guess I give you the positive is that PM Abrams, that they brought in, it's going to be $50+ million project, and they're taking like an old building that is just dilapidated and removing it to do it. So that's you talk about the rise in Selfridge, like taking off old buildings and building new. That's inspiring to see. It's starting to kind of take off. You want this tomorrow, right? Like, hey, we want to, but I mean, it'll take time, but it's starting to happen. That vision of a research type of environment. What I'd like to see is the outside of Selfridge on the west side, the Joy Road Gate area. Would love to see that revitalized into an industry, like an industrial park that supports the DOW now, Department of War Industries. Because you're next to a federal installation that's going to have secure space that you can go collaborate with industry. And so there's a lot of positives happening at Selfridge. So that's, I guess, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
yep, perfect. I know we're getting, go ahead.
I represent the city of Sterling Heights. We're 134,000, arguably the third largest in the state, technically the fourth. But we partnered with our good friends in Warren. And
good friends, really? Okay.
So we created together the first of its kind the Arsenal Alliance. I don't know if you've heard of it. But our two cities are funding to the tune of about $500,000 a year, and over a period of years, millions of dollars, to protect and grow the defense assets between our two cities, Warren and Sterling Heights. So I guess my question is, there's obviously some indirect relationship with Selfridge, and I'm wondering how we can collaborate some with this endeavor, and how we can tell the story of Selfridge and be a voice for your mission. And so I'm just wondering if you can think about that. Maybe we can gather in the future and talk about that. Because I think between the two cities, we can be a significant partner in all that you're doing.
No, I love it. And again, I'll get your card. We'll exchange. We have what's called the Kelly Johnson Joint Innovation Center, All Domain Innovation Center. And that part of that job is to bring technology here, companies here that are interested, and give them a venue to experiment, and not just at Selfridge, but up north. But a lot of the companies aren't going to domicile up north. They're going to domicile down in southeast Michigan, and then experiment, with our ranges and things of that. And so I'll get your card after this, and let's keep a dialogue, because that is the goal. Is part of my job. I'm not just military, right? I'm appointed by the TAG. Is we're trying to grow the defense industry in Michigan. That's one of our missions too. So,
Great. Last question.
Okay.
Nobody?
Oh, there we go. Chief White.
I need an elevator speech. People ask me all the time, why do we need to increase the runway and already accommodate everything we have flying? I need an elevator speech to explain to them why we have to expand it, not just off the top of my head.
Perfect. All right. It's all about the safety of flight and being good community partners. The runway length is where the current runway is sitting. When you do an approach from the south to the north, you're flying over homes that are within 2,000 feet of the end of the runway. That's a safety violation from the Air Force's perspective. It's called a clear zone violation. So Selfridge has been non-compliant for decades. And at one point, it was rumored to be said in the halls of the Pentagon that Selfridge would never get a future fighter, a tactical fighter, because of that encroachment concern on the south end of the runway. So there's two things at play here. It's one, the Air Force says we're not going to give you a mission unless you fix it. Indirectly, they say it. Once we got the aircraft, then they're like, oh, we don't really want to pay for it. That's a whole nother story, right? But so that's one. That's been a thorn on our side. Odie Slocum remembers when we got the draft of the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, and that was one of the biggest deficiencies and why we didn't get F-35.
He makes it sound like ancient history. Even Odie remembers.
Yeah. Hey, I've got the mic. So one, it's a requirement for the Air Force, and there's two solutions to that. You kick people out of their homes, but that's not going to happen, right? Or you move the runway to the north. That's the choice. And the governor and General Rogers went to the Air Force and said, this is what we're willing to do to make that. So that's the elevator speech. Is the Air Force says that you're not compliant to fly, even not just fighters, any aircraft. It was another reason to retire any flying mission here. And two is, it's the right thing to do for the community and the safety of the people that are in that flight path, protecting lives in the event there is an accident. Hopefully that's a good enough speech. All right.
Long elevator ride.
When I flew over it, the homes weren't there.
Yeah, right.
We had to fight with Chesterfield and explain to them, you built your home next to the base, now you're complaining about the base.
Yeah. And it isn't the people. I'll give the people probably love it on the south side because they get to see those jets come in, but it's the safety of flight issue. Kosmo Kramer.
And a big thanks, Kosmo, to come, sorry, that's his nickname.
Yep.
Coming down, talking to us, hopefully answering some questions for you about what's going on out at Selfridge. This is part of what we do at the Air Force Association. Education, advocacy, and support. Those are our pillars of what we do. Thank you for being dedicated to the future of Selfridge, what's going to go on there, and especially for taking care of the wonderful men and women that are out there. So thank you for that dedication. For you all, thank you for being here. It really is a part of being the eyes and ears for our community. Now you know you can share the message. And thank all the elected folks that got to hear everything that was going on here today. So this is absolutely awesome. So what a great start to 2026. Every second Friday we're in here. All right, so mark your calendars. I don't know what our topic's going to be for next month. Stand by to find out. We'll come up with another good one. But once again, thank you, Kosmo. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day. God bless.